In this episode, we take a closer look at the essential skills and experience that support success for people pursuing the Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, path, because many new learners hear the word manager and immediately assume they are either fully ready or completely unqualified. The truth is more encouraging and more practical than either extreme. CISM is aimed at people who want to understand how security is led, organized, communicated, and improved inside a real organization, which means the needed abilities are not limited to one narrow technical specialty. Some of those abilities come from formal job experience, but many start developing much earlier through the way you think about problems, the way you communicate with others, and the way you connect security work to larger organizational goals. When you understand the skill set behind the certification, the path begins to feel less mysterious and more like a deliberate professional progression. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to begin is with the difference between raw technical knowledge and managerial security thinking, because that is where many beginners get confused. A future CISM candidate does not need to know every tool, every log format, or every configuration detail in the security world. What matters more is having enough technical literacy to understand what security teams are trying to protect, what kinds of threats and weaknesses exist, and how different controls contribute to protection. Technical literacy is not the same as deep specialization. It means being able to follow conversations about systems, networks, applications, identities, data, and incidents without becoming lost or overly dependent on other people to translate basic concepts. A manager who cannot understand the meaning of a vulnerability, an outage, a misconfiguration, or an access control weakness will struggle to guide the program well. So one essential skill is broad technical awareness, not because CISM is a hands-on technical certification, but because management decisions become much stronger when they are grounded in a realistic understanding of the environment being managed. Another essential skill is the ability to think in terms of risk rather than only in terms of technology. Many people enter cybersecurity with a mindset shaped by tools and alerts, which makes sense because technology is often the most visible part of the field. But CISM candidates need to go further and ask what the technology means for the organization. A future security leader should be able to consider what might happen if a weakness is exploited, how serious the consequences could be, which business process would be affected, who would care most, and what level of response is appropriate. That kind of thinking turns security from a technical activity into a decision-making discipline. Risk thinking helps you distinguish between a problem that is annoying and a problem that threatens mission, reputation, safety, legal obligations, or continuity. It also helps you avoid the common beginner mistake of treating every security issue as equally urgent. Strong candidates learn to see the relationship between exposure, impact, probability, control strength, and business consequence, because that is the language real organizations use when serious decisions must be made. Communication is just as important as risk thinking, and in many ways it is the skill that allows all the others to be useful. A future CISM candidate must be able to explain security concerns clearly to people with different backgrounds and priorities. That includes technical staff, business leaders, auditors, project teams, legal teams, operations leaders, and sometimes customers or external partners. Each group needs security information framed in a way that is understandable and relevant to their responsibilities. A technically correct explanation that no one understands is often no better than silence. The skill here is not simply speaking more often. It is learning to translate security ideas into practical language about consequence, priority, accountability, and action. Someone on the CISM path should be able to explain why a risk matters, what decision is needed, who should be involved, and what trade-offs may exist. This matters because management and security is rarely about solving everything personally. It is often about helping the right people understand enough to act wisely. Closely connected to communication is the ability to work across functions, because security management almost never succeeds through one team acting alone. Beginners sometimes imagine security as a self-contained department that creates rules and other people simply follow them. Real organizations are much messier than that. Security affects operations, development, procurement, human resources, finance, legal, privacy, audit, compliance, and executive leadership. A strong CISM candidate therefore needs cross-functional awareness and a willingness to collaborate with people who do not think about security the same way. This means understanding that another team may be balancing uptime, customer service, productivity, cost, or regulatory timelines while security is trying to reduce exposure. Good candidates learn how to build cooperation instead of creating unnecessary resistance. They know that progress often depends on influence, negotiation, and timing, not just on being correct. Experience in cross-functional work teaches an important lesson. Security programs become sustainable when they fit into the broader organization rather than acting as a permanent outsider to it. One of the most valuable skills for this path is judgment, because management decisions in security are often made in conditions that are imperfect, incomplete, and time-sensitive. You do not always get perfect data, unlimited time, or universal agreement before you must recommend an action. That means a future CISM candidate should be developing the ability to weigh competing factors and choose a reasonable path forward. Judgment in this context includes deciding what matters most, identifying what information is still missing, understanding when escalation is necessary, and recognizing when a technically attractive option may not be the best organizational option. This kind of maturity grows over time, but it can be strengthened much earlier by paying attention to how decisions are made and why they succeed or fail. A good candidate does not chase certainty that never arrives. Instead, that person learns to make thoughtful, defensible decisions based on mission, risk, available evidence, and the realities of the organization. This is one reason experience matters so much in management-oriented certifications. Judgment is shaped by repeated exposure to real consequences. Leadership is another essential area, but it is important to define leadership correctly. Many learners hear the word and picture only formal authority, such as managing a team, controlling a budget, or holding a senior title. Those can certainly be forms of leadership, but they are not the whole story. A person can show leadership by improving a process, helping others understand a risk, coordinating during an incident, clarifying accountability, or guiding a project toward a more secure outcome. For CISM candidates, leadership is often about influence before it is about position. It means being able to move conversations from confusion to clarity and from reaction to intention. It also means modeling responsibility, professionalism, and consistency in the way you approach security matters. Organizations need people who can steady a situation, align efforts, and keep important work moving. That is leadership in practice. Formal management experience can strengthen it, but the underlying behaviors can begin much earlier, and those behaviors are a meaningful part of what the CISM mindset is trying to develop. A solid understanding of governance is also essential because security management does not happen in a vacuum. Governance is the structure that defines direction, accountability, oversight, and alignment between security and organizational goals. A CISM candidate should be comfortable with ideas such as policies, standards, roles, responsibilities, decision rights, oversight, and the relationship between security activities and business objectives. This does not mean memorizing governance language in a dry or abstract way. It means understanding why organizations need clear authority and clear expectations if they want security efforts to be effective and sustainable. Without governance, security work becomes inconsistent, reactive, and difficult to defend. Experience with governance may come from participating in policy discussions, supporting audits, working with compliance expectations, or seeing how leadership decisions shape program direction. Even at an early stage, a learner can begin noticing who approves security priorities, how exceptions are handled, and how security goals are communicated. Those observations help build the kind of organizational awareness that supports later success on the CISM path. Program thinking is another major skill area, and it often marks the difference between someone who sees isolated security tasks and someone who understands how a security capability is actually managed. A program is more than a collection of disconnected controls or projects. It is a coordinated effort with goals, resources, ownership, processes, measurements, and ongoing improvement. CISM candidates benefit from learning to ask how a security activity fits into the larger program. Why does this policy exist? How is this control monitored? Who owns this process? What metric tells us whether it is working? How does training support behavior change? How does reporting influence leadership action? These are program questions, and they matter because organizations do not succeed by doing random good things. They succeed by building repeatable systems of responsibility and oversight. Experience in program thinking can come from participating in awareness efforts, supporting control reviews, helping with reporting, or observing how different security functions are tied together under one strategy. This skill helps candidates move from task orientation to management orientation. Incident awareness is also crucial because CISM is deeply concerned with how organizations prepare for and respond to disruptive security events. A strong candidate does not need to be the most advanced technical investigator in the room, but that person should understand the life cycle of incident readiness, response, recovery, and learning. This includes recognizing why planning matters before an event, why communication must be structured during an event, and why post-incident review is necessary after the immediate emergency has passed. Experience with incidents teaches lessons that are difficult to absorb from theory alone. It shows how quickly priorities can collide, how communication gaps create confusion, and how important it is to know roles and escalation paths in advance. Even indirect exposure to incident exercises, after-action discussions, or business continuity planning can help a future CISM candidate build the right instincts. The key idea is that incidents are not only technical events. They are organizational tests, and management skill becomes very visible when pressure rises. Ethics and professional credibility matter more than many beginners expect, because security management depends heavily on trust. People in security often work close to sensitive information, difficult decisions, and uncomfortable truths about weaknesses, failures, and exposure. A future CISM candidate needs a strong ethical core, which means being honest about risk, avoiding distortion, respecting confidentiality, and handling responsibility carefully. This is not a decorative quality. It is central to the job. If leaders cannot trust the judgment, integrity, or discretion of the people guiding security decisions, the program becomes weaker no matter how good the technical tools are. Credibility also grows from consistency. When someone communicates clearly, owns mistakes, treats others fairly, and avoids unnecessary drama, people are more likely to listen when serious issues arise. Experience strengthens this over time, but the foundation begins early through habits of professionalism. A candidate on the CISM path should be building the reputation of someone whose security advice is thoughtful, balanced, and trustworthy. When people talk about experience for CISM candidates, they often focus only on the formal requirement, but the deeper point is understanding what experience actually develops inside a person. Experience teaches context. It teaches how policies collide with real workflows, how risk decisions get influenced by budgets and deadlines, how people react during incidents, and how difficult it can be to move from a good idea to an operational reality. It also teaches humility, because real organizations rarely behave like tidy examples in a textbook. For beginners, this should not be discouraging. It should be clarifying. You do not need to have done everything already, but you should value experiences that expose you to how security works in practice. Work in support, operations, compliance, governance, audit, project coordination, or general information technology can all build pieces of the perspective that later helps with CISM. The real value of experience is not that it gives you stories to tell. It is that it changes the way you interpret security problems and organizational decisions. It is also worth noting that not every useful experience comes from having security in your job title. Some of the best preparation comes from roles where you had to coordinate with others, explain difficult issues, manage priorities, document decisions, support continuity, handle sensitive information, or see how technology affects business operations. Those experiences are helpful because CISM sits at the point where security meets organizational reality. A person who has supported an internal audit, helped with policy updates, participated in a risk review, worked through an outage, or assisted with process improvement may already have valuable building blocks. What matters is the ability to learn from those situations and connect them back to governance, risk, program management, and incident response. A candidate grows stronger by reflecting on the bigger lessons inside ordinary work. Which decisions were clear and which were vague? Which roles were accountable and which were not? Which controls were effective and which only looked good on paper? That reflective habit helps turn experience into insight. For learners who are early in their careers, the most important message is that the essential skills for CISM can be developed deliberately over time rather than appearing all at once. You can build technical literacy by paying attention to how systems and controls function. You can build risk judgment by asking what the business impact of a problem might be. You can build communication ability by practicing clear explanations and listening carefully to how other teams describe their concerns. You can build leadership by taking responsibility, following through, and helping others move toward good decisions. You can build governance awareness by noticing how authority, policy, and accountability shape security outcomes in real environments. None of this makes the path effortless, but it does make it practical. The future CISM candidate is not simply born with management capability. That capability is formed through repeated exposure, disciplined reflection, and a growing ability to see security as an organizational responsibility rather than just a technical specialty. When you pull all of this together, the picture becomes much clearer. The essential skills and experience for CISM candidates are not about being the loudest voice in the room or the deepest expert in one narrow tool set. They are about developing enough technical understanding to stay grounded, enough risk awareness to prioritize intelligently, enough communication skill to influence others, enough leadership to create direction, and enough organizational experience to understand how security really works inside a living institution. Formal experience matters because it sharpens judgment, but the foundations begin far earlier in the habits you build and the perspective you develop. A strong candidate becomes someone who can connect security to business purpose, connect problems to consequences, and connect decisions to accountability and improvement. That is the deeper meaning of being prepared for the CISM path. And it is why the journey toward that certification is as much about becoming a certain kind of professional as it is about preparing for an exam.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.